atheism, it's an ideology today in the 21st century that has been embedded into the secular world, the community today, put in the books, put in the educational systems, and fed to the modern day youth, where they are now raised and being educated with things like Darwinism, with things like, how we came from a common ancestry, how can God allow suffering, and these kind of like contentions. And so we need to understand first and foremost, before we move forward, what atheism actually is. So in reality, from an academic point of view, there is no necessarily like some kind of like hard, defined atheism-based definition. I like to use a more practical one. One that's commonly used, if you look, in the Oxford Dictionary, is it basically means or entails a lack of belief in God, or a lack of following or belief in religion as a whole. That's what atheism is according to like Oxford and whatnot, and other dictionaries, Cambridge. But from a more practical point of view, if you split the idea of atheism as it applies today in our modern day century, you'll see that there's mainly three types of atheistic ideologies. The first is the positive atheist. The positive atheist is the one who comes to you and says, there is no God. There is no God. That's a positive claim. It's a positive assumption. Okay, so it's sort of like this pre-knowledge, this presupposition, as we call it. The second is the veiled agnostic, or the negative atheist. The one who says, there isn't evidence. There isn't enough evidence for God. That's a veiled agnostic because it entails or implies that if there was to be a case, a good case for God, that they would accept it. And then there's the social atheist, which is quite common today. The social atheist is the one who has been socialized into atheism. This is very common. You're pretty much a sheep of society following the modern day trend, new atheism, Richard Dawkins, right? Stephen Hawking. So you're following the trend. So that's atheism. Now, the question is, how should our youth deal with atheism? What is the practical way of dealing with atheism? So first of all, we need to understand that atheism does fall into what we call kufr. Now, I'm not using the word kufr in kind of like the Islamophobic way, but kufr, from a linguistic point of view, means to cover something. If you look at, for example, some Arab poets, they would talk about how the clouds are doing kufr on the stars, like they're covering the stars. So it's sort of the same thing. Atheism is a type of kufr. It's covered. Now, what is it covering? It's covering the reality. It's covering the truth. And that's what we're going to learn about today is we need to install in our youth, based on the struggles that they face today with this new rise of atheism, godlessness, that atheism is not the default position. It's not. From an Islamic point of view and from a realistic point of view, it's absolutely not the default position. And so there's something called epistemology. This term, it's a big term, but epistemology means the knowledge of knowledge, right? The knowledge of knowledge, or the study of knowledge. How you come to know something. So, as Muslims, what we need to do is question everything epistemologically. We need to question, well, why do they believe what they believe in, right? Or why do they reject a higher being? Why do they reject Allah? Brothers and sisters, we need to install in the youth that the standard default position is Islam. The standard default position is God. There is a creator, not there isn't a creator. So when an atheist comes to you and says, prove there is a God, in reality, the default position that you should articulate back to them is prove that there is no God, prove that there isn't a God. Now some might come and say, well, this is a fallacy. The burden of proof is on you. Right? It's a logical fallacy, they say. But in reality, they're falling into a logical fallacy. Because they already have a presupposition, an assumption that prove God is real, prove God is true. You can easily turn this on them and make it circular and say, prove that that statement you're making is true. the statement itself. This is what epistemology is about. Prove that God is true. How can you prove that statement to be true? So if you think about it in that sense, their reasoning is very circular. Where did they get that presupposition from? The standard isn't that there is no God. The standard is that there is a God, there is a creator, there is a designer. You have design, thus it leads to a designer. You have laws, thus it leads to a lawmaker. It points to a lawmaker. That's the standard. There is a designer, there is a creator, there is an initiator, there is a first cause. So what's happening today in our modern day society is atheists are coming forward, they're being forefront, they're being loud, they're being aggressive with their anti-dawah, if you want to call it, and they're saying, no, the standard position, the default position is, there is no God. Right? So you prove to us that there is. When in reality, brothers and sisters, we need to be empowered. We need to empower our youth and make them realize that they have the spiritual advantage. And this is, by the way, Islamic. We have a fitri concept in Islam. Yes, I'll say that again. We have a fitri concept in Islam. The Prophet ﷺ said, كُلُّ مَوْلُودٍ يُولَدُ عَلَى الْفِطْرَةِ, that every son of Adam, but he didn't point to a specific people. He said every son of Adam is born in a natural inclination, in a natural disposition, in a state of Islam. يُولَدُ عَلى الْفِطْرَةِ. The fitrah here it involves Islam, submission, pure submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, believing in Allah. Which is why the atheist, at the time of death, who do they cry out for? If they're drowning, right? If their flight happened to crash and they're going down, who do they cry for? Think about it. There's something innate, there's something intrinsic within them that cries out to God. Oh my God, is what they say, right? So this is what we call Fitrah in Islam. We have a fitri theology, a fitri ideology, which is the default position of every human being. So now that we know that, we articulate this and we teach our youth and we ground them with this fundamental that, my dear son, my dear daughter, the standard, the default is, there is a fitrah in every single human being. It's just covered. It's in kufr.